Well, welcome back. Delighted to have you at America's Feature Series National Security Pitch Day. I'm Scott Murray. This is David Hamilton, and we are getting ready to introduce to you Bo Young, who is one of our co-chairs today. So we're delighted to welcome him. It's really something very, very special what we've got here. But I'm going to introduce first of all, if you will bear with me, Scott Aughenbaugh's bio here. He serves as the National Security Innovation Network Transition Cell Director. That's Ensigns, is what you probably know it as in this role, and others at Ensign. He has worked with 600 early stage ventures between pre-seed and Series B and numerous university teams that are looking to connect in both the commercial and defense markets. And prior to his work in the Defense Department, Mr. Aughenbaugh spent 6 years working as a fellow at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, focusing on emerging global trends. So we are ready to roll. Bo, are you ready to roll, my friend, as well?
Yes, thanks a lot for the intro there for Scott, and I'll take care of Farooq's introduction. And
yes, sir. Take it away. Thank you.
So thanks, guys, for being here. And we had the introduction for Scott already, but also with us is Farooq Mitha. Farooq has a Bachelor of Science degree from the University of South Florida and a law degree from the University of Florida. Go Gators, right? Right, that's how we do that. And after graduation, he was a Fulbright Fellow, studied in Amman, Jordan, went into private law practice, and then public service, where he's been a special assistant for the Office of Manufacturing and Industrial Base, and then also the director of the small business programs, where currently he has that actual position as the director of small business programs for the Office of the Secretary of Defense. So, guys, thanks for being here. And our topic is going to be new entrants and why it's important for new entrants, non-traditionals, if you will, to enter the space, and then what's the best way for them to do that. So, Scott, if we could start with you, why don't you give us a little Ensign 101, if you will, and who Ensign is, what it does, and how it helps new entrants.
Sure. So Ensign has been around as a program office now for a while, a number of years. In some ways, we grew out of what was the Defense Innovation Initiatives, the work in 2014 and 2015, leading to this need to support defense innovation broadly across the department. And at that time and that vision, it was looking at how could we help build a network across the United States of universities and entrepreneurs, small businesses, et cetera, that could help deliver new capabilities back to the Defense Department by injecting problems in a different way. And so Ensign, as sort of as a 101 level, high level, is trying to take those problems that we're collecting from end users all over the place and inject those back into individuals who are looking to solve those from a perspective of a university or an early stage company that we're working with, typically between a pre-seed and a Series B company that we're engaging in some of those solutions that are being developed. So Ensign at a high level is engaging those communities across the United States. We have 45 universities that are teaching one of our flagship programs, Hacking for Defense, across the US. And oftentimes those students and those groups that we engage are looking to form companies on the back end of those projects as well. And so Ensign broadly is trying to support those small businesses that potentially could come out of academia or those that we've engaged through other programs like CIBER and in other programs. I know Farooq is going to talk about things like Mentor Protege and other great programs the Defense Department's engaging in. So Ensign as an organization is really focused on the network and the effect that our network can serve. So we're spread throughout the United States, just like those universities. We have individuals in various regions, and they're there for you if you're looking to connect locally with the Defense Department.
Great, thanks. I think it's really helpful. And it's an incredible organization with great reach, both inside the government and outside the government. Farooq, can you tell us how kind of small business fits within the new administration's Build Back Better America program, and what kind of emphasis the new administration has as it relates to small business in general?
Yeah, no, Bo, thanks. Great question. And I started as the director of small business back at the end of February, so I'm just getting almost to my 2-month anniversary on the job. And just for everyone's context, my office sits within the Undersecretary for Acquisition and Sustainment. And yes, the Biden administration has the Build Back Better plan, and small businesses are a big focus of it because the president and the secretary feel very strongly that small businesses are the backbone of our economy. We need small businesses to address American competitiveness, pacing challenges that we've faced from our adversaries, and also on how we bring more equity and inclusion into our economy, specifically in government contracting. And we strongly believe that federal government procurement, through innovation, through later stage companies, infusing small business capabilities into our defense programs, has a direct correlation to that. We have a renewed emphasis on manufacturing, on how we can reshore critical capabilities that we may have lost over the previous decades, and also reinvigorating our manufacturing innovation institutes that work closely with my office and with Ensign on how we can bring new entrants into the ecosystem. So the small business engagement piece is a critical component to Build Back Better. The White House, DOD, SBA, and other agencies are working day and night on how we can rebuild our economy and build it back better with the power of the federal government and the inclusion of small businesses.
Yeah, I'd like to circle back a little bit and talk about this, the notion of reshoring. So I think, during the pandemic, we certainly saw how the global economy, has driven a lot of the supply offshore in a way that was problematic during the pandemic. Are there specific things, and I know it's early, so this in the administration, so this may be a little unfair of a question, but are there specific things that you see being discussed in terms of policy that would really help or accelerate the reshoring effort?
A few things I can talk about. One is, obviously, we've seen supply chain disruptions in the commercial markets, in semiconductors and other areas. We've seen, and we will see, price changes, and you've read all the stories about car manufacturers and others that have been shutting down or downsizing plants, and the impact of weather, COVID, you name it. So the last year has been really concerning from a supply chain resiliency perspective. I think there's a couple of things. There's the executive order the president signed out early on Buy America, and we're working through how that's implemented. But the idea is, how do we spend and support our domestic industrial base to the best of our ability? I think if you look at even how we've spent our COVID dollars through the Defense Production Act and others on PPE, 40% plus of that money has gone to small businesses. So we've really been emphasizing how we can leverage, bring those supply chains back where possible. But I also think we need to look forward at what are the next industries going to be, what are the critical technology sectors that we need to make more investments in to nurture an industrial base here that may not exist anywhere. So I think part of it is looking at what we've lost and how we bring some of it back. The Buy America effort is one policy that we're working. But I think the other thing is, how do we look forward at what's next? And that's the only way we can really stay ahead of our adversaries and excel our American competitiveness.
That's great. Scott, you mentioned in your opening statement the Hacking for Defense program that exists at the university, and I think it would be really interesting for people to kind of understand how that works and how broad it is. If you wouldn't mind talking about that for a minute.
Yeah, so the good news about Ensign is, again, we're spread out and we have lots of individuals helping with that effort. So it's not just something that one person does. We have a whole network that gathers problems directly from customers or mission partners, and takes those problems and we look at them, we massage them to make sure that they're written in a broad enough way so they're not too prescriptive on how to solve those particular challenges, and then give them to university teams who work on them for a semester. So that particular program, which we've been running now for a number of years, is quite successful in that we're able to very quickly through those student teams develop paper prototypes, MVPs, early stage solutions, lower TRLs, to give back to those customers on how they might be able to go about solving that particular problem or challenge. And then due to the nature of this work, oftentimes we get problems that are unique enough that it warrants the idea of creating a new small business on the back end of it. And so I think that's a place where I would love to see us at Ensign and the department nurture some more of those ideas coming out of universities, and provide other ways for those again, end user customer level, in some cases, major command level customers, to give them their problems back in such a way that they can start the process of working through acquisition or research and development as required to move those forward. And I think that it's not just the tools to small businesses that come up here, but sometimes we need to help our internally to make sure that those in the Defense Department understand the methods by which we might be able to rapidly prototype new solutions in that, again, that low TRL 3 to 6 space, to move those forward to the point where larger commands, major commands, systems commands, POs, et cetera, can procure those solutions. And so I think that Hacking for Defense really is one of those great entry points for university students that are looking to provide solutions back to the Defense Department and use it as part of a class where they're learning about lean methodology, lean startup methodology, which was pioneered by individuals like Steve Blank.
And how many different universities does it exist at now?
45, and I believe at least two of the service academies, I believe Air Force and West Point both have classes.
Yeah, I think the other thing that's really cool about it is that these students, many of them would never otherwise touch anybody in the military from a standpoint of a military problem set necessarily. So it is exposing a whole nother group of individuals to national security leaders, to national security problems. And so in that way, it's sort of creating this civic awareness that might not otherwise exist. There's a lot of different entities out there that are doing outreach. So you've got, we've heard from AFWorks. There's a panel later about Naval X. We've got the 75th Army Applications Lab. It seems like we've done a really good job over the last several years of creating these entities to make it a little easier for a company to get started, to have a touch point. So I wondered if you could comment about that and then talk about the small business offices themselves, because a lot of commands and entities have these offices, and sort of how that works, how the small business offices are a little different than these other entities.
Yeah, I can say a lot about that. So on the first part, I think the department's done a great job with a lot of these entities that you mentioned, and others like SoftWorks and DIU and others of the engagement piece. And you've seen over the last 4 or 5 years, we've actually expanded the use of prototyping authorities that help us do business faster with small companies, especially with our innovators on prototyping projects, and then the ability to, if the prototype is successful, go into production non-competitively. I think those are really great tools that we've been emphasizing over the years. And I think if done right, we'll continue to emphasize them as a way to bring new entrants into our ecosystem, and then have the direct connection to customers that can help them scale and infuse those capabilities into their programs. On the second piece, so we have there is a lot of engagement. One of the things that I want my shop to do moving forward is to really be a belly button on how to engage with these different programs and offices. I think one of the challenges that small businesses, especially new entrants, face are, where do I go? And there's 10 different websites, and there's 5 solicitations or 3 that SBIR does, and my office does mentor protege solicitations, and then there's all these different announcements. I want to create a one-stop shop where industry can go and see all of these opportunities in one place. We have a small business programs office at the Office of the Secretary of Defense, which I lead, but there are also small business offices, as you mentioned, within every military department and defense agency that does basically what we do, but at that requirements level. And they have a dotted line reporting up to me, but they really report into their own organizations. We also have over 700 small business professionals that are part of the acquisition workforce that are all across the military departments and defense agencies. And they're working with a lot of the programs that you mentioned. They're doing market research. They're making sure that we're setting aside contracts for small businesses when the market research shows that small businesses can perform the work. So there's a lot of policy implementation that goes on at that level to make sure that we're giving small businesses a fair opportunity to compete, because that's really what we want at the end of the day. There's also the procurement technical assistance centers, which soon will be reporting to my office, but we fund right now 94 centers across the country that help small companies look for opportunities, do one-on-one counseling. And one of the things that I want to do moving forward is to make sure we're connecting those, what we call PTACs, if you've never heard of it before, to programs like Ensign, to programs like SBIR, DIU, and with the acquisition workforce. So when a small business goes to a PTAC and they want counseling, there's a closer connection to actually getting them plugged into something. So there's a lot out there. You will probably see over the next 3 to 6 months, my office provide a more universal picture of how to access all of these resources. And that's one of my top priorities.
Yeah, I think it's a great initiative, because there is, in some ways, the goodness that we've created has also created a little confusion. And, there's not a consistent platform. There's in some ways not a consistent language. And so if you have a solution that can cross different entities, sometimes, I hear from companies that they just don't know where to get started, So I think because they don't really quite understand the subtle differences, and there are subtle differences between some of these organizations and how that all works. Now, you mentioned a mentor protege program. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so my office oversees a program that essentially pairs large companies or successful small businesses with other small businesses, either disadvantaged businesses or new entrants, or those in general who have not had experience doing business go with the government before. And we actually provide them with business development support that we reimburse the prime for. So you have companies that have contracts for existing programs, and they bring in small firms with innovative capabilities and mentor them, and they provide them with either certification training, how to bid on proposals. They end up teaming together. Many times the capabilities of the small business the small business itself becomes a supplier to that larger company. And we see the data shows that those firms contribute about $3 billion plus worth of work a year to defense requirements alone. So it's a very successful program. I'm breathing new life into it, and we're going to be partnering with Ensign to get some of the companies coming out of their programs to be matched with primes that are mentors in that program, and other linkages as well. I think one of the things we're looking to do better in the department is internally collaborating and saying, hey, if we understand there's a critical capability gap or an innovative technology that we need to mature, how do we use our collective resources to mature it together? How do you create a pathway from Ensign to SBIR to Mantech to Mentor Protege and mature these technologies in a cohesive way? So that's something that we've been working on over the last couple of years, and I want to reemphasize that in the role that I have now.
And your folks in the field, they will actually do the matchmaking. If a company, I'm just trying to understand a little bit of the nuts and bolts for the audience. So A couple things. Will they'll actually try to do the matchmaking between your company and a prime? And then how big does a company need to be in order to be a viable candidate to be mentored?
So we don't do the matchmaking, but what happens is we have participants in the program from the services and agencies. They put out their priorities and they accept agreements between the mentor firm and the protege firm. We have two types of agreements. One is a credit agreement where the mentor will get credit towards their subcontracting goals. We have other agreements that are reimbursable agreements where we will reimburse the costs of the mentor to provide the engineering support or other types of capital investments that may be needed for the protege firm. There's no size for being a protege in the program. Any small business, especially new entrants, are eligible. It's just a matter of will the project proposal match the priorities that are put out by the services and components.
That's great. Thanks. We've got about 5 minutes left, and I'll give you guys kind of this final question. And most of our audience, or a lot of our audience anyway, are young companies trying to figure it out. And so Scott, let me come back to you first. So what is the one piece of advice that you'd like to give to a new company who thinks they have a great idea, they think maybe it's got applicability in the private sector market and in the national security market? What would you tell them?
Well, one, I'm smiling as I'm going through this because I had a similar version of this conversation with Farooq in Florida for a conversation with a bunch of PTACs and other small businesses a few years ago. And I would say that this is a campaign, right? This is not something that's going to go away for small businesses. It's not just going to change from administration to administration. We're always going to have a need to engage small businesses. And what I would say is that somebody somewhere probably will talk to you. It's just hard. It's just like any other customer transaction that you're probably engaged with on the commercial side. You know, oftentimes you're going through multiple customer discovery sessions, which is something we talk about at Ensign a lot. We facilitate a lot of customer discovery through accelerator programs, pitch events, other things that we're doing at Ensign. And so what I would say is anytime you have an opportunity to do more customer discovery, whether that's in support of an event or paid through something like a SBIR Phase 1 through the Air Force Open Topic, I mean, those customer discovery opportunities are important for you to participate in because the Defense Department needs that market research and understanding so they can continue to engage. So I would say that any customer discovery opportunity you have is worth pursuing, knowing full well that we're still trying to learn as much on the Defense Department side about you as you are from us. So please engage as much as you can back. We need your help.
Great, thanks. Farooq, how about yourself?
Yeah, Scott's spot on. I think engagement is important, but it goes both ways. We, from the government side, need to engage the industrial base and small companies, but we need small companies to engage us. And there's so many events that are happening now that I don't think were happening when I first started my career at DoD. And COVID has created environments for opportunities to do events like this, where you can get conversations with customers easier to some degree. So I think staying engaged, getting involved, looking at the requirements and the opportunities that are out there, tailoring your business model to where the department is headed. And I think we've done a good job of putting out there what our critical technology priority areas are. I want to do a better job of putting actual forecasts out on procurements, which is something that we used to do in the past. So I think being in the information flow, being engaged, having some level of patience, because no matter how fast we try to move, it does sometimes take time. But I think for people that are in the game and do those things, there's a lot of great opportunity.
We have a couple questions that have come in from the field. So without having my glasses on, let me try to read them. One of them, Farooq, is for you. I think I know the answer, but I'm not sure actually. Is if a company is U.S. owned but based overseas, is there any ability for your office to work with them, or is your focus all in the U.S.?
If a company is, can you repeat that? If they're
It's
owned?
it's U.S. owned. I'm assuming it's U.S. owned. The question doesn't specify that, but if it's U.S. owned but based overseas, is there any outreach outside the the 50 states, I guess, that your office would supply?
They can work with us, with the department, but we don't have any specific engagement to overseas companies not from my office.
Okay. Okay, great. Any final comments? We got about 2 minutes left. Scott?
Yeah, no, again, just happy to be here for this conversation. I wish it was under different times. We could do this face to face. But again, I think that Farooq's office and Ensign, we're working on a memorandum of agreement together on how we can better partner going forward to do a lot of the things that we've been describing today. So I'm hoping that over the next number of months, we can talk about ways in which we can also further engage your business. Great.
Farooq, any final thoughts?
No, I'm glad to be here. Great conversation. Go to our website. It's easy, business.defense.gov. And you'll see that site with more and more content over time. We've got information on Mentor Protege there. We've got a cyber readiness program called Project Spectrum, which you can find there for small businesses. So a lot of good resources there, but there will be more to come.
Great, thanks. And for those of you that will be at the happy hour tonight, there are multiple tables that are hosted by individuals from Ensign that you can learn more about the organization or their areas of expertise. So please join us, and that'll be about 5:30 tonight, starting off. Guys, thanks a lot. Great conversation, and appreciate your time. David, let me throw it back to you.
Thank you, General. Thank you, gentlemen. Fantastic conversation. We appreciate it. You guys have a great day.
Thanks.
So I want to thank General Young. Not only is he on our advisory board and has given us a great deal of support over the past year or so, I want to thank him for his leadership of this event, of being one of the co-hosts of this event. I want to thank him for his service as well, his military service, and his service in terms of innovations, having stood up the 75th Innovation Command. And I want to thank both Farooq and Scott Ensign for being our title sponsor today. I want to thank them and recognize them for the work that they do on national security innovation. I mean, that is exactly what they do it, and they do it in such a broad and deep way that it's very meaningful. They are actively moving the needle and ensuring America remains the strongest military and economic power in the world, which is important to all of us, as well as our allies. I like the question that we got from people from the outside asking Farooq if they could engage with his office overseas. I can't speak for them, but our policy and our view is that if you are an ally of the United States and you want to pull on the oars together and engage and help put the capabilities our warfighters need to maintain and advance their advantage on both on the kinetic battlefield as well as the cyber space, etc. We welcome all of you, and we would love for you to speak. So this is an international event. Our series, the Cyber Land, Air, Sea, and Space Symposium, is a international affair. Had a lot of folks from NATO participating, everyone from Europe to Australia and everything in between. Would love for you guys to reach out to us. If your organization would like to volunteer a speaker, a moderator, a panelist, etc., please don't hesitate to go to www.americasfutureseries.com. Reach out to me. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can reach me at david@americasfutureseries.com. We are looking for speakers. We're looking for folks to join General Young and others like that in these kinds of important conversations.